Panic sets in. Carney bans journalists from elites-only event plus scraps Chinese EV tariffs. Canada is navigating one of the most turbulent political and economic periods in its recent history. Under Prime Minister Mark Carney, the nation faces a series of controversial decisions that have sparked intense public scrutiny. From banning journalists at elite political events to reconsidering trade tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, these moves are igniting debates about transparency, media freedom, economic stability, and democratic values. Canadians are closely watching how these policies will reshape domestic and international policy. The exclusion of journalists from a high-profile Liberal Party event has provoked widespread criticism across Canada. The Canadian Association of Journalists condemned the move as an attack on transparency and freedom of the press, fundamental pillars of democracy. Critics argue that restricting media access undermines public oversight and prevents citizens from holding leaders accountable. Public discussions, commentary, and social media debates have highlighted fears that such measures could establish a troubling precedent for government control over information and limit democratic participation. Prime Minister Carney defended the controversial decision, explaining that the event was intended solely for party members and not open to media coverage. Despite this defense, many Canadians and political analysts remain unconvinced. Social media reactions and news commentary suggest that this move is perceived as an attempt to control the narrative and suppress critical perspectives. Excluding journalists from political events raises serious concerns about the public's ability to scrutinize government decisions and threatens trust in institutions tasked with serving the public interest. Simultaneously, the Canadian government is considering removing the 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles, a decision that has sparked debate across economic and political spheres. Supporters argue it could reduce EV costs, expand consumer options, and accelerate Canada's transition toward cleaner energy transportation. Critics, however, warn that eliminating the tariff could harm domestic automakers, increase reliance on China, and weaken Canada's bargaining power in global trade negotiations. The decision highlights tensions between short-term consumer benefits and long-term national interests. This potential tariff removal comes at a time when Canada's economy is under considerable stress. Trade tensions with the United States continue to affect key sectors, creating uncertainty in industries that depend on export stability. Critics of the EV tariff change argue that relaxing restrictions on Chinese imports could further destabilize Canada's economy, making it more vulnerable to global market fluctuations. Policymakers, business leaders, and economists are debating whether the immediate advantages for consumers outweigh the potential long-term risks to domestic industry and economic sovereignty. Environmental considerations are an important part of the ongoing debate. While Chinese-made EVs may offer lower emissions, questions remain about the environmental standards applied during production and the broader impact on global sustainability. Environmental groups argue that Canada should prioritize products meeting strict ecological standards over cheaper alternatives. The influx of lower-cost EVs could also undermine domestic green technology initiatives, raising concerns that economic expediency may conflict with long-term sustainability and Canada's environmental commitments in the fight against climate change. The dual controversies of banning journalists and reconsidering EV tariffs have placed Prime Minister Carney under intense political scrutiny. Opposition parties, analysts, and the public are questioning his leadership decisions. The Liberal Party's commitment to democratic principles and transparency is being challenged, and critics argue that decisions made without clear public consultation or oversight could erode confidence in governance. As Canada grapples with these complex issues, Carney's ability to balance domestic priorities with global responsibilities is being examined more critically than ever. Public opinion in Canada is deeply divided regarding these issues. Some citizens support the government's actions, trusting that they protect national interests, stabilize the economy, and ensure strategic trade decisions. Others view the measures as authoritarian, restricting freedom of expression and press accountability, while potentially undermining economic stability. Recent opinion polls indicate fluctuating approval ratings for Carney, reflecting a nation uncertain about whether these high-stakes policy decisions align with democratic values, economic sustainability, and long-term strategic priorities. The media's role in Canadian democracy remains central. Excluding journalists from elite political events raises serious concerns about access to information and the public's ability to hold the government accountable. Independent reporting ensures citizens can evaluate policies critically and understand their impact on everyday life. Any actions that limit media participation threaten to erode public trust, diminish transparency, and signal a departure from democratic norms. The free flow of information remains essential to maintaining a healthy balance of power and safeguarding the principles Canadians rely on to govern themselves effectively. Looking ahead, the decisions made by Prime Minister Carney will have lasting implications for Canada's political, economic, and social landscape. The government must balance competing priorities, including trade relations, environmental responsibility, economic stability, and democratic freedoms. How these challenges are navigated will affect Canada's credibility, both domestically and internationally. Canadians and global observers alike are closely watching whether the government can implement policies that protect the nation's interests while maintaining democratic transparency and public trust in leadership decisions. Accountability and transparency are at the heart of these controversies. Canadians expect leaders to uphold democratic principles, protect press freedom, and make decisions that reflect national interests rather than political expediency. Carney's recent actions have raised doubts among the public, critics, and political commentators. Restoring trust will require clear communication, engagement with stakeholders, and policies that demonstrate a commitment to transparency, fair trade practices, and responsible governance that prioritizes both short-term and long-term national well-being. Canada stands at a historic crossroads where the choices of its leaders will define the nation's future trajectory. The combination of political controversy, economic recalibration, and environmental considerations demands careful deliberation. Citizens, media, and international partners are observing closely as Carney navigates these challenges. The ability of the government to balance competing priorities while preserving democratic integrity, economic stability, and environmental responsibility will determine Canada's success in meeting the complex demands of the 21st century and sustaining public confidence in its institutions.